Coaching youth athletes at community sport level requires the qualities of leadership and an infinite vision to leave a team in a better shape than how you found it. However, we live in a finite thinking world. It's all about short-term goals. We focus on the now, not so much the building blocks of growth and development. Your team needs to buy in to strategy, decision-making, and a belief that they can transform their skills to the next level. To support this, coaches require an important set of skills for success. Let's talk about human skills. When we talk about coaching, we often talk about skills, experience, coaches that have previously played the game, and what they bring to the table in the sense of what they've learnt and being able to give that over to their students, the kids of the game. What's really important though is that having those skills is great, but it's really just a small percentage of the skills that you really do need to have. Human skills are our communication between ourselves and the people that we're dealing with. If you're coaching junior kids or even youth kids, it's pretty obvious that how you communicate is fairly important. And depending on what sort of style of a person you are, that can have a major influence on the relationships that you may well be building with the players. What's important is that there are some key ingredients when it comes to being a leader. Now, as a coach, you may not think you are a leader, but you are. You are in charge. So you, on a weekly basis, when we go to training and go to games, we're the point of contact. We're the person that's mapping out how we're going to progress in what we do at training and what we do on game days. So it's important to understand that when we look at the human skills side, this is something we don't often talk about with coaches. We mainly talk about learning drills, we talk about the strategy, we talk about football IQ, we talk about things that are needed to compete and to try and win games, obviously, get better at what we do. But we never really talk about what tools and development that we can possibly put into our coaches to help you become great leaders. So today I want to talk about human skills in particular, and I'm just going to touch on a couple of things here to look at. First one is style and behaviour. Then we're going to talk about self-awareness, and we'll eventually get into emotional intelligence and our mindset. Now, when you look at things like style and behaviour, what's he talking about? Well, your style is how you conduct yourself. Some people are going to like you, some people just aren't. And unfortunately, you can't control that. But it's important to know that if you are aware that you try and do everything to the best of your ability and you're trying to do the right thing and genuinely you're a good person, sometimes you'll lose this debate just because somebody doesn't like you. You've got to move on from that. What's important is that if you know you're a good person, you're trying to do the right thing, and if they're an introvert and you're an extrovert, then there's going to be these sorts of clashes. You can't control those sorts of things. What you can control, though, is the environment with the kids that you're actually coaching. How do they see you? How do they feel about you? And your style needs to be around the mindset of growth. If you see yourself as somebody that is providing a service that has knowledge and can help, then this is the best possible way you can go. Now, let me flip this around for a second. Let's say you come to a footy club and you've never coached before. Maybe you played the game in the past. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you've never had it, but you've always watched it on TV, or you've watched different people in your life play the game. You understand the game. You know the rules of the game. We often perceive that people who haven't played the game couldn't possibly be coaches, and I don't believe that for 1 second. In the real world, you want good people. It's more important to have people who have a growth mindset, that have a positive attitude, than to have someone who's highly skilled but maybe have a negative attitude, maybe a fixed mindset too, where they don't want to make any changes from the way they do things. They're not even open to the topic of discussion. And herein lies the secondary part, which is behaviour. We need to understand in a game that is infinite, it'll be here season after season after season after season. Clubs will be around for hundreds of years. What we do during a season is building, building, building. We are developing all the time, but we're also growing people. So when you behave in certain ways, like losing your shit over an umpire decision, and there is a bunch of kids behind you that can see how you're reacting, and your assistant coaches and your team managers, and of course there's always parents very close to where the coaches box area is, we set the scene for what is considered okay. What's the standard that we've set the bar at when it comes to behaviour? So we're going to talk in depth about behaviours and what we can do to become self-aware. Now, self-awareness is a really important thing. When we look at our past, we have all made, me included, lots of mistakes simply through our experiences of dealing with situations, dealing with people, whether that's players or parents or the club's management committee, umpiring, officials. We all have this communication cycle that we go through at some point in regards to how we get our point across without hopefully being offensive or aggressive. It's really important that we understand that while we're in an environment that is going to be around forever, we're part of this building block for the future. So infinite meaning forever, this thing just keeps going on and on and on and on. Finite meaning it's now. It's a short-term thing. And we tend to think short-term a lot when it comes to the word winning. Becoming self-aware is important because if you're going to be in a process where you've decided, you know what, I want to be a coach, I want to help, which is great, that it's not just about now. It's about this ongoing thing that's going to happen over a period of years, sometimes decades for some coaches. So it's important that we understand that this growth and development that we're trying to bring to the table does have a lot to do with us as coaches. We need to be self-aware. Now, this is not something that you're going to find in a coaching training manual. Everything is more designed through the skills of the game, things like football IQ and strategies and what we see with the AFL at the premier side of the competition, the professional guys. But come back down to community level, it's a different kettle of fish. We only have maybe a couple of hundred people at our games on the weekend and everyone's standing around the fence or they're even sitting in cars. Professional-wise, there's 100,000 people turning up to a game. Umpires can't hear anything, nor can the players most of the time, because it's a sporting environment at the highest level. So it's important to understand that how we conduct ourselves as coaches at this junior and youth level in community football, a lot of our behaviours are going to really set the tone on things like whether a child will even come back the following year because of your behaviour. The behavioural skills we're going to talk about today are these two here, which is non-verbal and verbal. When we look at, particularly in the non-verbal stakes here, we're talking about communicating through the eyes. When we use our eyes, they can tell a bit of a story. So we need to be aware of sort of how we look at people sometimes and how we sort of go about our facial expressions. When we start looking angry or, you know, if we're rolling our eyes at someone because we think they're a bit aloof or whatever it may be, just think about your facial expressions as well. Your tone of voice. When you start getting really hyper and you keep it there, that can put people off. A lot of coaches have to have a fairly loud voice because they need to communicate in an open area. But just be aware of if it's a consistently loud voice, at some point you will annoy people. It will get overbearing. So just bear that in mind as well. And the other one is hand gestures. So if we go back to this table here, it's important if we're using our hands, that's not a problem. But when you start doing this, you start putting your finger in someone's face. That's not a great environment to be in. It's a little bit aggressive. It can really upset people. They just simply don't like it. So be aware of that one. On the verbal side, making clear requests, pretty obvious. Listening to others, helping others. We need to listen. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Make sure you listen to what's being said by your players and make sure that you understand what they're trying to say and find a way to help them understand better. Resisting negative influence. You can get toxicity in teams because somebody in the team may not be on the same page as everybody else. Premiership coaches know one of the most important things that you have to achieve by the end of the year is to get everyone in your team on the same page. If you've got a toxic person in your team that's currently or constantly getting away with maybe some poor behaviour or disrupting the team, some people would say mucking around, things like that. You've got to find a way to communicate with that player and try and resolve that issue so that it's not an ongoing detriment to the team, because at some point it will change the way people think about you as a coach. So it's really important that once again you make that sort of change. But participating in a positive peer group, you want to keep a really positive environment. There are some kids that will be wanting to play rep or get drafted one day. There are other kids who just want to play for the sociability aspect and have a bit of fun. There are different levels of commitment through the team. However, if you have the ability to get everyone on the same page, you'll find that maybe your bottom 5 or 6 players who maybe just aren't as talented or aren't as fit or whatever it may be, they will lift because your best players will drag them along because it requires everyone on the team to do the job on the day. If you think about the environment that you're constantly putting to the players, you need to understand that decisions that you make can change that environment from being positive to being negative. So just be aware of that one as well. Now, I'm just going to touch on this one again. Negative behavioural skills, playing favourites. Coaches have, unfortunately, over a period of time, in some levels of age groups, right through to senior football, sometimes forget that by just taking your best players to one side as maybe the head coach and leaving the rest of the group with, say, an assistant coach, is that you really are showing everybody that you are actually playing favourites, because the best people in your team don't need all the work. It's the other 15 to 20 players in the team that need the work. But when you consistently split the group up and you take your best players to one side and the coach spends a lot of time with them, really you're sending a signal to the rest of the group. And that is that these are the best, I've got to make them better. When the whole point is, if you're not spending your time with the team or the part of the team that needs the most development, but you keep spending it on your best players, you're telling the group that you're playing favourites. Not only can the players see it, but the parents can see it. And then you start having issues with your assistant coaches because they understand as well. They can see it as well. They're not stupid. Team managers can see it. Then your volunteers can see it. If you do just look more to the talent to try and win everything, they're the kids who usually don't come off the ground either during a game. They're the kids that are absolutely buggered. That's you. That's on you. You created that environment. So we want to be aware that it is a negative behavioural skill when you play favourites. Now, speaking to players about their body shape, this is a big one. Boys, girls, makes no difference. Talking about whether a child is tall or short in the terms of making funny jokes about it, that's where the problem is. It's okay to say that someone's tall and someone's short. Talk about the strengths of their height. Don't talk about the weaknesses of being short. Talk about the strengths of being short. Potentially if they've got speed and things like that. Same with kids that are carrying a little extra weight or kids that are a little underweight. We need to understand that speaking to players about their body shape is not on. It can't happen. And the final one, this is the most important one, is aggressive behaviour. It just keeps happening. We just keep having coaches that lose the plot and they get really aggressive. This is where the finger pointing starts and yelling or screaming even across the field because we're unhappy with a player's decision, or they made a mistake on the field, or they don't agree with an umpire's decision. They get caught up and they just lose control. And this aggressive behaviour can't happen in kids' sport. It's an absolute no. And anyone who thinks that that's bullshit, you should not be a coach, because aggressive behaviour towards anyone in any situation is just not warranted, particularly in sport. It's not supposed to happen in the workplace either. There's a reason for it, and it's because of how we make people feel. We're not in line with the purpose of the club, and the purpose is to foster the game. Aggressive behaviour is not a fostering environment. It's a demanding and controlling environment. Discipline, having a bit of a word or a say about what's going on, trying to motivate. Yes, sometimes we're going to increase our volume. We are seeking the attention of the people in front of us to try and lift them, to take them to the next level. There's a way of doing that. It's not through being aggressive. Aggressive is just can't happen in junior and youth sports. So what do kids and parents think about coach behaviours? Well, if you're a coach now, this is important that you do think about this, because in the behaviour cycle, we need to understand how we conduct ourselves on a daily basis is being looked at. Ultimately, at the end of the day, everyone's looking at us. They're all looking at how we behave on every minute that we are with those kids. So from the time a parent turns up with their car, the kids jump out, they get in the football field, there's an expectation that, one, they're in a safe environment, two, that they're going to be having some fun, and three, that whilst they're there, you're going to do the right thing as a coach. And I think we can all agree that 99.9% of us all want to achieve that exact result. That's why we're there. We're there to help. But it's important to never forget, because if you start pulling kids out on the field and maybe take them across the other side somewhere away from the group to have a talk to them, and you're doing these ones and parents can see it, that's aggressive behaviour. We don't want to be seeing that either. It also means that people get upset and they're likely to get involved, maybe even jump over the fence and come and have a chat. You don't want to have any of that stuff. So just be aware of that one as well. Now, I just want to talk about something else that's also really important as far as the way we think about when kids sit on the bench. So the question is this fun? Because for a lot of coaches, they really struggle with the concept of how this bench system works. The original idea was that we have a bench so that players can come off the ground and they can get a drink for all their hard work they've done because they're buggered and they need a rest for a minute. And we have other players that are fresh and ready to go on. We still have a lot of coaches that don't understand that concept. They still are locked in this idea of my best players are always on the field and these are the bottom 4 or 5 players in the team that they're not as good as everybody else, so therefore I've got to keep them over on the bench. I'll use them when I have to. Is that fun? Like, if you're one of those kids that constantly sits on the bench, is that a fun thing? I remember once taking over a team mid-year because the coaches basically ran away. The kids first asked me at the first training session, are you going to leave us on the bench for the whole game? That was the question that got asked to me of a team that was 2/3 of the way into a season, who I'd never had anything to do with. None of the kids were mine within the team, but that was the question they asked. Why would they even think that? Clearly, I realised that the coach previous had literally kept their bottom 4 players on the bench for literally the whole game. And those kids wanted to leave. They didn't want to be there anymore. It wasn't fun. They didn't feel like they were part of a team. They didn't feel like in any way whatsoever that they were getting better. They just felt like they were making up the numbers because coaches had it in their brain that apparently this was fun. It wasn't really that they thought it was fun. They just weren't thinking. Their behaviour got to a point where this became a normal cycle. Now, when you get to sort of under 11s to under 14s, this is a really difficult time for a lot of kids as they go through puberty. They're growing, their body shape's changing. If they don't feel like this is a fun environment anymore, what do? They leave. Why? Because of a coach. So this is a really important thing for coaches to understand, is that this needs to change. This brain mentality thinking of must have best players on the pitch at all times at the sacrifice of the kids that are turning up to training but they're not even getting a game. That's not what this is about. Fostering the game is about developing. That means that if you've got a team, let's say of 22 kids or 25 kids, where you've got to pick some kids who may not get a game on the weekend, if you want to get your best to the end of the year, you've got to play these players. You've got to help them understand what their role is and what they need to get better at. And you've got to find positions where you can challenge them occasionally. Sometimes you want to, we tend to just push kids into an area of the field and say, okay, that's it, that's where you play because you're out of the way. Now, one of the biggest problems with basically the bench is we don't understand how to rotate players. I still see a lot of coaches literally holding a board the whole game with magnets, and they just keep moving magnets around the whole time, and they're trying to figure out how to do their rotations and when is a good time to do a rotation, because apparently never is the answer. And then some coaches go, geez, we've got a 15-minute quarter. At 7.5 minutes, we'll get this player to rotate with this player, and they'll do that the whole game. They won't rotate with anyone else. It's just those two players will rotate with each other. And we get to the 7.5-minute mark and the coach goes, okay, better send the runner out. We'll get little Johnny off the field, who's on the far side of the oval and the ball's going nowhere, and it takes the runner 3.5 minutes to get that player off, which now leaves the other player about 3.5, 4 minutes to then get on the field, get into the game, and then bang, siren goes. And what does the coach do at quarter time? Little Johnny who came off the field is starting on the field again, and the kid that came off the bench is starting on the bench again. And this same cycle keeps happening with the other players on the bench as well. Whilst we see kids that maybe are talented playing in, say, midfield areas, and they're buggered. They're running all over the joint, and all they want to do is they just want to drink of water. But even if they try and come off the field, coaches are like, no, you've got to stay out in the field. Fostering the game, we've lost the plot. And then we've got this mentality going on, all driven by a coach's behavioural actions. As a coach, your emotional intelligence, otherwise known as EQ, is something that can really bring you unstuck. Now, the point of these coach development sessions, particularly around self-awareness and emotional intelligence, is a big part of that, because how you react to situations, your behaviour very much is pushed onto the people that you are leading. It's really important to understand that everyone's different. We're all human. We've all got our goods. We've all got our bads. And over our journey of life and our life experience, we generally get better at doing things. But if you're not self-aware of where maybe some of your behavioural traits go a little bit wrong, when it comes to emotional intelligence, quite often it will exacerbate the whole situation to another level. So, why do humans lose their shit? A lot of people have got different thoughts about why this happens, but ultimately, let me explain it to you in terms that just keep it really simple for you. So I'm going to paint this picture here about emotional intelligence. So first thing is, in this diagram here, we've got a couple of different things we're going to talk about. Firstly, I just want you to think about a snake. If you're scared of snakes, or if you love picking up snakes, either way, you're going to deal with things a certain way. So what happens is we see a snake, it comes in through the eyeball and it sends a signal to what's called our thalamus. It's your body's information relay station. What then happens is a signal gets sent in two directions. So basically we've seen the snake. Okay, we know it's a snake. One signal gets sent to your visual cortex, which receives, integrates, and processes visual information. It's the thinking part of your brain. Exactly the same time that signal gets sent there, it also gets sent to our emotion center, which is our fight or flight response. It's called the amygdala. The fight or flight response is heart rate and blood pressure increase, large muscles prepare for quick action. So what we're talking about here is a signal that's being sent in two directions. One's a thinking, one of them's emotional. It's fight or flight response. It's instant. It just happens. So when you hear people say, I didn't mean to say what I said, I lost control of my emotions, this is where the thinking part of the brain, the visual cortex, never even had a chance to think about what it should have done or had the time to think about it, because your emotion center takes over. So when you think about the concept of why do people lose their shit, it is very much about the fact that your emotion center took over. You didn't get a chance. Now, why do these sorts of things happen to some people and not others? Why are some people really calm and other people are really flighty? Like they just bang, things just make them click straight away. Well, there's a few different reasons for it. I'll just run you through a couple. And that is the way you were brought up, the environment that you grew up in, the stress that's been upon family life. If you've had, for example, a teacher at school that was really flighty, you've sort of been around that and understand it, and you kind of learned it. So you've seen it happen. It's something that you've developed. So there's a few different ways that these things can happen. But of course, when we bring that back into terms of football, how you respond to situations. Umpires is a perfect example. When you see something and you think that the umpire got it wrong, how you react to that, does it make your blood boil? All those sorts of things come into play. And of course, your behaviour then becomes a bit of an attraction. Now, for all the people that are sitting over the fence and they're watching this, they're going to have an opinion on, again, how you behave. But it's your emotional intelligence that's getting the better of you. So again, if we talk about self-awareness, if you are one of these people that tends to fly off the handle and you're in a leadership position, it is not a good look. Just because you do it doesn't mean you're a bad person. You're bloody human. We all, me included, make mistakes. We can let our emotions get the better of us. So it's important to understand the whole purpose of this course is about being more self-aware. So if you know that you're one of those people, what are you going to do next time a situation arises? Do you get a chance just for 1 second to think, hang on, might be building up and boiling inside, but if you can just hold that thought, pause, having a pause before you respond, have a think about what the ramifications are if I lose my shit right now. Who is going to be affected? Because it's finite, it's right now, it's a short-term thing. It's not infinite, it's not the long game. You're setting yourself up for that one thing that you could do that is wrong, that could get you in a bit of trouble. And I don't just mean trouble with the association and the people controlling the competitions. I'm talking about the people that you coach and their parents. And we often see parents lose control of their emotions because, let's face it, they have no authority over the game. They have no power. They have no voice. By barracking and trying to help, i.e. be positive and clap their kids on when they do great things, occasionally things go wrong, and that's the emotion centre taking over the situation. So once again, as a coach, if we're here with a growth mindset, if we are here to develop and create fulfillment in our players, that they are getting better and better and better, when we start behaving in a certain way where we're losing control of our emotions, that's not putting us in a very good place to be. You can have the most highly skilled coaches, but if they maybe grew up in a time when it was okay to be well, abusive, then that's probably the way they're going to coach too. Even if they've got kids, they may not even be like that at home. But the fact is, passion kicks in. And when passion kicks in, you have to ask yourself this question: is poor behaviour an excuse for passion? No, it's not. Understanding that your emotional intelligence can get the better of you at times is really the most relevant point here. That self-awareness trait, if you bring that in and you understand that you can occasionally lose your shit, just the fact that you're even aware of it, you've just got better. And if you can pause and get some control over it, even if it's internally you're boiling, again, those non-verbal and verbal facial expressions, things like that, that's one thing. But literally flying off the handle and projecting how you feel about the situation, that's what's going to create a problem. If you can at least get it to be internal, that's the first step. If you can stop projecting it to everybody and try and keep it internal. I remember once I was so frustrated by something during a game when I was coaching, I walked out the coach's box, walked around the back of it and just faced the back wall of the coach's box and had a little word to myself for a minute. And a few people came up to me and said, "Are you all right?" And I went, "Yep, I'm fine. I'm just controlling my emotions." And they had a laugh. They saw the funny side to it because I knew I was about to blow out. I knew I was about to do something that I shouldn't be doing. And I understood the environment in which I was standing in. So although to some people that might have been just a little bit funny, I think it also probably earned just a smidgen more respect too for the fact that people knew that I was thinking about my awareness of what I was about to do and the fact that I was even open and talked about it. That's all part of growth, and this is the learning curve of emotional intelligence. If you are a person that sort of struggles a little bit with self-awareness, then I'll just get you to have a quick look at this chart. So it's your emotional self-awareness that we're talking about. Your social awareness is empathy. It's being aware of the organisation that you're in and why you're there and what the purpose is. Then you've got self-management. That's your self-control, your adaptability to the situation, and obviously achievement orientation. Not just the game and winning, but your achievements too as a coach and understanding you're getting better at what you do. And having that positive outlook is a much better way to go about it than constantly being on edge. And again, if we think about relationships, your influence, you are a coach and a mentor, you're there for conflict management. That includes things like not agreeing with the umpire. We just need to calm that all down and get on with it. And that brings in teamwork again, because if we all understand each other's personal awarenesses and traits and emotions and things like that, and we all know it, then we're going to be more likely to help each other through these sorts of periods of time as well. And this in line brings on a bit more inspiration for the kids and certainly shows much more depth as far as leadership goes. I'm going to wrap that one today and leave you with that concept of emotional intelligence. It's about being self-aware, and if you can get some control over your awareness, it is going to put you on a much better phase and continue forward to help you with your mindset about the game. In the next episode, we're going to talk about mindset. Mindset is one of the most crucial things to have in your toolkit when it comes to leading. When I first started looking into mindset was during the time I was doing a business degree, and I really branched out to try and find as much information as I could. And I was actually amazed how much stuff didn't make a lot of sense. And then I came across some people who knew what they were talking about, and they were people with PhDs and at universities, and they were able to break it down in really similar terms. And I hope at the end of this, as a coach, if you can really see the difference between the two, you may find yourself changing. If you've already got a growth mindset, then this will at least help you or remind you about understanding what it is that you're trying to achieve and how you're going to go about doing it when it comes to the communication part, particularly with your team. I'm going to move on now and bring up these slides and show you a little bit more about fixed versus growth mindset. So a world-leading researcher in Carol Dweck, she has a PhD at Stanford University. She focused on why people succeed and how to foster success. Now, Dweck is also the author of best-selling book Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. Dweck says, for decades I've been studying why some people succeed while people who are equally talented do not. Over the years, I've discovered that people's mindsets can play a crucial role in this process. Now, when we look at fixed mindset, they believe that you are not in control of your abilities, whereas growth mindset believe that you are in control of your abilities. When we look at the two side by side, fixed mindset people believe that skills are born, and that's because they believe you are not in control of your abilities. Whereas growth mindset people believe that skills are built, and that's because you are in control of your abilities. A step further, fixed mindset people believe you can't learn and grow, whereas growth mindset people obviously believe that you can learn and grow. What it is and how does it work? So we've looked at belief as far as characteristics go. We're now going to go to focus. If we look at growth mindset, for focus, the process of getting better, that's what it's all about. Whereas with a fixed mindset, they're more interested in performance outcomes and not looking bad. So when you put those two side by side, belief and focus, we start seeing how things are going to start breaking down in the way you go about doing whatever it is that you're doing. Now, one step further is let's have a look at some key ingredients. So there's effort, challenges, the mistakes that we can make at times, and also how we deal with feedback. Growth mindset people believe that effort is useful because it leads to growth. They embrace and persevere and frame challenges as an opportunity. With mistakes, they use them to learn. And feedback, they appreciate it and they use it. Whereas growth mindset people find effort not necessary. It's not useful. They back down from challenges and they avoid as much as they can. They frame everything as a threat. When it comes to mistakes, they hate them. They're discouraged by them. They avoid them. And for feedback, it's not helpful to them. They get defensive and obviously they take it personal. So people with a fixed mindset, they avoid doing the things that would help them grow. Now, when you look at the belief side and you say, well, skills are born, you can't learn and grow, that's why they don't put in the effort because it's not necessarily, it's not useful. When more interested in performance outcomes and not looking bad, that's why they hate mistakes. They hate feedback. And when it comes to challenges, they will back down. They frame everything as a threat. Always understand that fixed mindset people tend to avoid anything to do with growing. Whereas if we look at growth mindset, they see the opportunity to grow and achieve more over time. They understand it's a development thing. It's a building thing. We are growing, growing, growing. So when you say you have a belief that skills are built, you can learn and grow, then obviously from an effort point of view, it is useful. It leads to growth. And the process of getting better is embracing challenges. The things you learn from mistakes and feedback is something that is appreciated. And again, people with a growth mindset see opportunity to grow and achieve more over time. Now, the key is to understand the characteristics between the two mindsets and our actions, and our biggest one here is behaviours towards learning. Because if our behaviour towards learning is negative, then in general terms, probably our behaviour towards coaching will be a bit negative too. You really need to think about that because this is a very important understanding. We've talked about behaviours already. We've talked about things like emotional intelligence. But if your mindset is negative and you're not in a learning or growth environment, then this sort of thing is going to continue to happen. There's a better way of doing things. Now, the good news is that sports teams all over the world are integrating the growth mindset into their culture for continuous growth and development. So we're talking about teams here that at professional level are already doing this sort of thing. They're trying to change the way they go about thinking. Everything they do is done with this idea of perseverance, growth, development. We'll get better over time. We keep working on it. If you think about where you are as a coach right now, And of all the things we've talked about, which includes behaviours, your tasks, your technical abilities, we've talked about things like how you go about working with the people that you are with, how your relationship is with each and every one of them. And that's a really important part to remember, is that if you want to grow things, you've got to do it with everyone. It can't just be your favourites. It can't just be the talented ones. Having a growth mindset is about helping every single person in your team. And as a team, you're going to get better over time. If you have the ability to see the difference between the two, and you can see that maybe you're a bit fixed mindset, well, now we've just shown you the difference between the two, and that should help you learn and grow and understand. You became a coach. You learnt drills. You learnt skills. You learnt how to put a training session down. These are all growth mindset concepts. But if you've been playing football for 20 years and you think when you come and coach there's nothing that no one can teach you, then you clearly have a fixed mindset because you think you know everything. So therefore you won't want to take on any information from anybody else. I hope that really helps you understand the difference between a fixed and a growth mindset. And clearly a growth mindset is the best way to go. I want to sort of move to the next point now, and that is, as a coach, you are a leader. There's different styles of leadership. So we've talked about styles of behaviour, emotional intelligence, and we've talked about mindset. So this sort of arms you now to start thinking about what sort of person you are when it comes to leaders or being a leader. So I'll just bring you to this page now. What type of leadership? Many different styles of leadership. I've picked 4 here that I think will help you understand a few things. So one is servant leadership is essentially someone saying, I'm here to help. I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve the players. I'm here to serve the community. I'm here to serve the club. And I'm here to serve the game. It's called servant because you are there. Your whole purpose is to be of help, support, growth, development. So everything you do is based on the concept that you are trying to help people. When we talk about transformational leadership, if you are a servant leader, over the period of a season, you will see a transformation. It will happen because you've taught them skills, you've taught them about teamwork, you've taught them about the right things and the wrong things to do, how people behave at times, including obviously yourself. So the transformational progress is really what we want to achieve, because ultimately when we have transformation, we then see that these young people have taken all those skills and things that you've brought to the table to make them better. And again, when we look at a step further here, there's authentic leadership. Being yourself is really important. However, sometimes your personal beliefs may not be the same as everybody else's. So you need to draw sort of a fine line here in the sense of what's personal to you. Things like your values, if you have really good values and they're fairly generic in the sense of people want to see good things happen, then those authentic parts of yourself are going to be really, really good. If you have a political stance and you're constantly talking about that, or you're religious and you're constantly talking about your religion, if you've got kids that aren't religious or they don't like that sort of thing, then your authentic self could be part of the problem. So you need to sort of pick and choose and keep a line in the sand about being authentic. I myself would like to think that I'm a servant to the game, but I'm very much authentic. That means that I have to be careful about how I talk about certain things that aren't related to playing football. So when we look at different generations, that can play a bit of a part too. Baby boomers and Gen Xers, I'm a Gen X, and then you've got millennials, and of course we've got Gen Z. Now, right now we've got Gen Alpha in junior and youth football with Gen Zs at the very end, under 15, under 17s type thing. We need to understand that different generations, kids have been brought up with different things, the digital age, for example. There's a whole lot of different things going on. Adaptive leadership is certainly something we see more of now in the workplace, where we are requesting our management teams and our leaders to be more adaptive to people's values, people's religions, people's way of life, or whether they're vegans or whether they're meat eaters or whatever it may be. We have to be adaptive to that. So example there is if you're going to arrange some food for a barbecue, yes, you do need to ask the question about who eats what, because you don't want to upset anyone or have a parent come and have a crack at you because everyone else in the team got fed except for their kid because they have a different nutritional requirement. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, they don't like this concept of having to be adaptable to that. But if you want to have that team environment where everyone really does feel like they're part of this one team and everyone understands each other's way of life, then it's going to make things a lot more easy to do that. So it is important to understand again, and as it says down the bottom here, leadership it's a choice. It isn't a rank. And it's a famous saying by Simon Sinek, who's an author. What is really being said here is we want to take away this idea of being the boss. It's not about being the boss. It's about serving people. It's about helping them get better. When we look at football, let's say we get to the last game of the year. You're coaching. You've had all year to get it done. It comes down to that game. The kids that are playing that game, everything they've learnt during the year should have prepared them to understand what it is they need to do, how they need to do it, and that they're going to make mistakes. But how you react to a situation might well be what changes the dial on the day. Understand that by the time you get to the end of the year, you should have had that transformational process where everything, these kids have just picked up on it, they've taken it on board, and you're starting to see leaders on the field with your team. You'll start seeing kids who are giving directions out on the field, and it may not be the captain of the team. Leaders can be all throughout your team. They're the ones that pick players up when they've been knocked down, or they dust them off, or they go and congratulate them if they kicked a goal or just did something really well during the game. And it's really important to always have this concept in your mind as a coach that you are there to serve. You want to see that transformation. You've been yourself the whole time as well, but you have had this growth. This thing is just building and building and building, and it's infinite. It just keeps going because if they have another coach in the following year, the same thing's going to happen. And eventually, when kids get to that age of sort of 18, are they just playing the sport for fun? Do they want to get serious and try and get drafted and go to the next level? Who knows? But if we've done everything we can to get them to that point where they can make those decisions and feel comfortable within their own skin about how they've got to where they are, and most importantly, how they remember you, then this is a really important thing. I don't think there's anyone that would disagree that feeling like as a coach you've really helped people grow is a fantastic feeling. I want to leave you with this one as well. Servant leadership. The outcome of servant leadership are follower, performance, and growth. Servant leaders do not compromise their ethical principles in order to achieve success. Now, I just want to talk about this ethical principles part. Being authentic and not changing your ethical principles is about being good. It's about all the good things. Again, don't get caught up in some of the personal things that may be in your life, because it is really important that to achieve success, that you are the driving factor. You are the one who's made a difference in these kids' lives. And if you're able to sort of continue your development as a coach and you keep having this growth mindset, you're thinking about how to deal with your emotional intelligence all the time and how you behave, and importantly, how you deal with umpires and things like that. This is something that is just going to make people better. But more importantly, it's going to make you better. So thanks again from The Leadership Consultant. If you need to contact me, it's paul@theleadershipconsultant.com.au.